may join Dr. Dutch with the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for outreach and support.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, whenever you're joining us, wherever you're joining us. I am Dr. Dutch, and this is the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for outreach and support. And today is Monday, June 9th, 2025. And as always, I want to thank you for joining us in this space, a space where curiosity is honored, where compassion is essential, and where complexity is never something we shy away from. Today is June 9th, and we're deep in the heart of Pride Month. For many, Pride is a time of joy, parades, rainbows, laughter, and love, but it's also and always a time of remembrance, a time to honor the courage of those who came before us, and a time to recommit ourselves to the work of inclusion, not just in theory, but in practice. I want to begin today with the words of Elie Wiesel, who said, quote, "I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever humans begin enduring suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Those words sit heavy, especially right now, because when pride is stripped of its political roots, when calls for civility drown out calls for safety and belonging, when inclusion becomes performance instead of policy, we risk becoming neutral. And as Wiesel reminds us, neutrality is not harmless. It's a choice, and it is a side. So today, as we reflect on pride, we also reflect on voice, on silence, on the responsibility that we carry, not just to live our truths, but to make room for others to do the same, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's unpopular, especially when the cost of silence is someone else's suffering. Pride wasn't always about parades and glitter. It began as resistance, loud, messy, and unapologetic. In June of '69, at the Stonewall Inn in New York City, queer and trans people, many of them black and brown, many of them unhoused, many of them already criminalized simply for existing, stood up to police brutality and systemic harassment. They fought back not because it was safe, but because silence was no longer survivable. The first Pride, held in 1970 to mark the anniversary of Stonewall, wasn't a party. It was a protest, a collective refusal to be erased, a demand to be seen, to be heard, and to be counted. And that legacy of defiance, of solidarity, of choosing the side of the marginalized still pulses through every Pride event today, even if some would prefer to forget it, or worse, erase it. So when we talk about Pride now, especially in a time when anti-LGBTQIA+ legislation is resurging and queer and trans youth are being targeted across the country, we have to remember that its roots are radical. Pride is not about assimilation. It's not about being palatable. It's about standing firm in the face of dehumanization and saying, we're still here and we deserve joy, safety, and liberation. And that's why Elie Wiesel's quote matters so deeply this month. Pride challenges us to take sides, not just once a year, but whenever the dignity of others is threatened. Because the moment we start prioritizing comfort over courage or neutrality over justice, we've already chosen who we're standing with or who we're standing against. At NACHOS, we know Pride isn't just a moment, it's a mirror. It reflects the ongoing struggles for liberation across so many communities, including our own neurodivergent ones. July is Disability Pride Month. Just like queer and trans folks have had to fight for visibility, safety, and respect, neurodivergent people, especially those at the intersections, are still pushing against systems that demand silence, conformity, and compliance. The story of Pride reminds us that being different has always been politicized. Whether you're neurodivergent, queer, disabled, radicalized, or all of the above, your existence is often treated like a disruption, a problem. But what if that problematic disruption is the very thing that makes liberation possible? Here at NACHOS, we honor problematic disruption. We speak into silence. We hold spaces for voices that too often get left out, not just with kindness, but with conviction. And in doing so, we refuse neutrality. We take sides, and we remind each other in every single episode that our stories matter. And the side we always will take is the side of humanity. So with that spirit of courage and clarity in mind, let's take a look at what's happening in the world this week. And let's take a look through the lens of neuroaffirmation, compassion, and the kind of pride that refuses to be quiet. Now, in the class this week, many students are reading a book that their final projects are based on, and that book is Academic Ableism, Disability in Higher Education by J. Timothy Dolmage. This book is available in our Discord. I've made the links available. I will probably also make the links available in the video here. But it is an accessible book, a universally accessible book. Both audio version and the digital version are available open source online legally. This groundbreaking work by Dolmage, it examines how higher education institutions and really education in general perpetuate ableist structures. They position disability as a problem to be fixed rather than a diversity to be embraced. And the author challenges readers to recognize and dismantles these systemic barriers, advocating for more inclusive and equitable academic environments. In Academic Ableism, Dolmage explores the architectural, pedagogical, and ideological frameworks that marginalize disabled individuals in academia, all the way from the ivory tower to the separate but equal ramp. He argues that the very design of educational spaces and curricula often exclude those who do not conform to normative standards of ability. This critique resonates with the spirit of Pride Month, which celebrates the resistance against systems that seek to silence and oppress marginalized identities. By analyzing the intersections of disability, education, and institutional power, Academic Ableism invites all of the readers to reflect on our own practices and beliefs. It urges educators, students, and administrators alike to question the status quo and to consider how policies and attitudes can either hinder or promote inclusion. In doing so, this book aligns with the broader goals of Pride Month to honor diversity, challenge oppression, and advocate for systemic change. So as you engage with this work for your final projects, consider how the theme of resistance, identity, and institutional critique inform your understanding of both disability and education, and reflect on ways in which academic structures can be reimagined to support all learners, and how embracing diverse perspectives enriches the educational experience for everyone. As a part of this final exploration for this semester, if you're one of my students, you're taking on one of the most creative, personal, and socially impactful projects for the course. You're reimagining accessibility through microaccommodations. This assignment asks you to shift from critique to creativity, from analyzing exclusion to actively imagining inclusion, from pointing out an open door and saying, hey, there's an open door, to checking the room and making sure that there are chairs set out, there's coffee brewed, and the lights are on. At the heart of this project is a deceptively simple question. what small change could make a big difference. Drawing from our course texts, you're invited to take what you've learned about barriers, both visible and invisible, and apply it to a real-world setting. Whether it's a classroom, a workspace, a public space, digital platform, your task is to identify an environment where inclusivity is lacking and propose a micro-accommodation, a small, cost-effective change that could open that space up to more people. And importantly, the community you choose to create accessibility for is entirely up to you. It might be disabled folks, but it could also be a specific racial or cultural group, LGBTQIA plus community, people with limited internet access, youth navigating mental health systems, elderly neighbors, anyone who has been historically excluded. In our area, our student experience is ripe with this. Access doesn't begin and end with a ramp or a caption. It begins with empathy and the willingness to ask who is being left out and what could change that. Some of the most powerful solutions aren't massive overhauls or big budgets. They're about intentionality and care. Maybe it's about offering flexible deadlines in a classroom. Maybe it's creating trauma-informed signage at public events. Or just proper signage. Maybe it's adjusting how we greet people in digital meetings or making language more inclusive in job postings. Each of these is small, but to the people impacted, it can be transformative. It can be life-changing. So whether you're writing a 750 to 1,000-word essay, which is small, or creating a 1 to 3 minute video, which is small, and that's a minimum. Your job is to tell a story, to highlight a problem, to reflect on its impact, and to offer a practical, compassionate, human-centered solution. And this is your opportunity not just to show what you know, but to imagine what's possible, to be free to fail with your ideas, and to become a part of a broader movement towards a world where people are seen, supported, and welcomed. So continuing from that discussion on our final project, let's delve into a recent incident that underscores the importance of accuracy and accountability in content creation. Principles that are especially pertinent when considering accessibility, inclusivity, and your final project, which you must write yourself. In a notable example, a summer reading list published in the Heat Index, your guide to the best summer supplement distributed by King Features to newspapers like the Chicago Sun-Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer, included several books that do not actually exist. The list was compiled by freelance writer Marco Buscaglia, who admitted to using AI for research without verifying the AI content. As a result, fiction was presented as reality, with fake books attributed to real authors such as Andy Weir and Min-Jin Lee. In response, King Features terminated the writer and reaffirmed its policy against using AI-created material. Both the Sun-Times and Inquirer removed the supplement from their digital editions and are investigating further. This incident highlights the challenges and responsibilities that come with integrating AI into content creation. And we talk about AI a lot here because we talk about being human. And so this reliance on AI without proper fact-checking or even double-checking led to the dissemination of false information, compromising the credibility of the publications involved. It serves as a cautionary tale about the responsible use of AI in journalism and underscores the ongoing complexity surrounding technology's role in media production and content creation. For our neurodivergent community, this event resonates on multiple levels. The spread of misinformation can have real-world consequences, particularly when it pertains to topics that affect marginalized groups. HHS. It's essential to approach AI-generated content with a critical eye, ensuring that the information we consume and share is not only accurate, but trustworthy. So moreover, this situation serves as a reminder of the importance of the human oversight in content creation. While AI is a valuable tool, it is a tool, and it lacks the nuanced understanding and ethical considerations that human creators bring to the situation and bring to the table every time, or hopefully every time if they're paying attention. As we continue to navigate the integration of AI into everyday aspects of our lives and maintaining a balance between technological advancement and human judgment, it's critical. We have to maintain that balance. So as you work on your final projects, consider this incident as a real-world example of the importance of accuracy, accountability, and the human touch in creating content that is both inclusive and trustworthy. And I'm not telling you to not use artificial intelligence. That would not be preparing you for the world that we live in. But you use it as a tool, not as your master or your guide. It's a tool. And you can't blame the tool. You have to blame the craftsman. So if we continue on from this discussion of the importance of accuracy and accountability in content creation, let's shift gears to a heartwarming story. And I just loved this story because it underscored the value of community continuity and the unexpected ways in which individuals and even animals can contribute to public life. In February of 2025, Palmerston, the former chief mouser of the UK's former Foreign and Commonwealth Office, came out of retirement to assume a new role as feline relations consultant to the governor of Bermuda. The governor of Bermuda is Andrew Murdoch. That is Palmerston's owner. Because Palmerston is a rescue cat who had joined the diplomatic service in 2016, but he was retired in 2020 when Murdoch took over as his caretaker. So now semi-retired, Palmerston attends select meetings and continues to charm the public with his presence. This delightful narrative highlights the significance of inclusivity and the diverse ways in which individuals can contribute to society. This is a cat. And this cat's return to public service, albeit in a semi-retired capacity, serves as a reminder that contributions to community and public life can take many forms, regardless of age or previous retirement, or hell, even species. And for neurodivergent community members, Palmerston's story resonates as an example of how unique roles and accommodations can be created to include diverse participants in meaningful ways. It emphasizes that with thoughtful consideration and flexibility, spaces can be made more inclusive, allowing everyone to contribute in ways that align with their abilities, preferences, and natural talents. So as you continue to develop, again, as a human being, and you think about all of these things, I mean, it's silly. It's a cat. But I don't know. I think it shows that even though international diplomacy is something that, again, is often left for intrigue, espionage, and witty banter with lots and lots of complicated twists and turns. Something as simple as a cat can bring joy and humanity, let's say, to the foreign service. I don't know. And so while we're on this subject of unexpected contributors, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4, let's head even deeper into the wild, past the cat pillow. Because Swansea University offered a surprising and deeply reaffirming insight into what really motivates group behavior, and they did so with baboons. According to research just released this week, baboons don't walk in lines because it's strategic or hierarchical. They do it because they're trying to stay close to their friends. Using high-resolution GPS tracking, scientists followed the movements of baboons in the wild and found that while the animals weren't marching in line for safety, dominance, or efficiency, they were simply walking near the ones that they had social bonds with. The pattern, called a social spandrel, challenges the assumption that structure always has to be imposed from the top down. Sometimes order just emerges when people or baboons are allowed to move in ways that honor their relationships. And that's powerful. Especially when you think about how often schools, workplaces, and even healthcare systems are designed around external logic. What's fastest, cheapest, or most convenient for and to the institution. Not what's most meaningful or relational or even human. And for neurodivergent folks, this resonates. So many of us have been told to suppress our instincts for connection, told that our social styles are too much or not enough or just not right. But this study reminds us that what looks disorganized or even carceral to some people may actually be beautiful and organic. It may be a true form of belonging, a pattern that is not made by rules, but a pattern that is made by love. So whether you're a baboon or on the savannah or a human navigating your own community, this message is the same. Stay close to your people. Make new friends, but keep the old. Move at the pace of trust. Let relationships and not systems set your direction. And when we say relationships shape how we move through the world, we're not just talking about baboons. Because here's the thing, just like those primates form natural lines based on affinity and trust, our lives too are formed and reformed by systems that either support or interrupt our ability to stay close to our communities. And in the neurodivergent world, some of those systems are shifting in deeply concerning ways. Because a new report from Disability Scoop reveals that autism research funding from the National Institutes of Health is down 26% in the first 4 months of 2025 compared to the same period last year. And that's a $31 million drop in support for one of the most misunderstood and misrepresented areas of public health. So why the decline? According to an article in Disability Scoop, it aligns with a broader reshaping of priorities under HHS Director Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And while he's announcing a $50 million initiative to study autism's causes, which will lead to them claiming a cure, including highly controversial and scientifically discredited theories linked to vaccines, actual funding is quietly shrinking. And it's not a policy choice. It's a signal. It tells researchers, advocates, and families that the most reliable peer-reviewed pathways for understanding autism might be getting sidelined in favor of sensationalism and speculation. And here's what connects back to everything that we've talked about in today's episode. It's about trust. Because like baboons who choose to move alongside those of whom they know, neurodivergent communities move in connections with those who see them clearly. Funding cuts fracture that connection. They make it harder to build knowledge, to share insights. Remember that cumulative culture that we've talked about in other episodes? And they harm the creation of policy that's rooted in actual lived experience and has scientific integrity. If we want to build a world that affirms neurodivergence and different ways of thinking, if we truly care about inclusion, about all humans, then research isn't just a technical issue. It's a relational one. It's about investing in people, not pathologies. It's about walking beside each other with purpose, care, and compassion. So as we round out today's stories, let's not forget that belonging isn't just about where we walk. It's about who's willing to walk with us and who's willing to fund the path forward. So let's take a moment to ruminate not just on the headlines we've covered, but on the deeper currents running underneath them. Because what ties it all together, from Pride Month to Palmerston the cat, from baboons walking in lines with their friends to $31 million that quietly disappears from autism research. What ties it together is this: who we choose to walk alongside and who gets left behind, it matters. It's a choice. And sometimes if we choose not to decide, we still have made a choice. Neurodivergent people, queer people, disabled people, multiply marginalized people, we know what it means to be left behind, to be labeled too different, too difficult, too expensive, not credible enough. And yet, in every one of today's stories, there's a quiet resistance against that dismissal. Whether it's a former embassy cat finding new ways to show up for the community, or baboons reminding us that connection, not hierarchy or power, guides meaningful movement. There's a pattern here, a reminder. And that pattern says this: we belong to each other. Not because we're perfect, not because we're productive, but because we are here. And that's at the heart of NACHOS, not just reporting, not just education, but a relationship between you, between me, between this community that we build every time we speak up, every time we listen, and every time we affirm someone's way of being. And we're doing more than that right now. Right now, I've been invited by the Genesee District Library to develop digital neuro-affirming outreach programs for families across Genesee County and mid-Michigan. And that means more conversations, more support, and more access for people who deserve to be seen and served exactly as they are, where they are, and when they are. And we're also gathering stories, research, strategies, and dreams for the upcoming Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference, which I'm proud to help host on October 24th, 2025 at Henry Ford College in Dearborn, Michigan. So if you're a storyteller, educator, advocate, researcher, or just someone with lived experience and something to say, our call for presenters is now open at www.humanities101.org/conference. We want your voice in that room. We need your voice in that room. And finally, if this conversation spoke to you, if it affirms something you felt but didn't have the words for, please follow along, subscribe, and share. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, or just come to YouTube. If you'd like to support the work we're doing, you can donate at humanities101.org, because every dollar, click, like, share, it all helps to build more inclusive spaces and to sustain this show and this space and to uplift neurodivergent voices across the country. Humanities 101 is a 501c3. I'll be speaking later this month in Grand Blanc, Michigan, and also in Washington, D.C. You can find details about those appearances on my website. So until next time, I want you guys to remember this. You don't have to walk in a straight line to be moving forward. Just like baboons, we find our direction not through perfect plans or polished paths, but through presence. Through who we choose to walk beside. And let that be the measure of progress. Not speed, not symmetry, but connection. Secondly, you don't need to have all the answers to take a side. When Elie Wiesel warned us about the dangers of neutrality, he wasn't talking about having a PhD in ethics. He was talking about courage, about choosing humanity over silence. So whether you're speaking at a podium or gently correcting a friend, that's resistance. That's what taking a side looks like. And lastly, your existence, messy, radiant, non-linear, it is never a burden. It's the reason we're here. And like Palmerston the cat showing up in semi-retirement, like a made-up book list reminding us to stay rooted in the truth, and like every micro accommodation that starts with a simple question, what could make life easier for you? Your presence in this world changes it in small but very, very revolutionary and impactful ways. So at NACHOS, we don't believe in perfect people. We believe in possible people. In flawed, brilliant, overthinking, overstimulated, over it people who will still show up, still build community, still believe that care is a strategy worth pursuing. And I like to think of those people as my nacho knots. So go gently into your week, nacho knots. Take exquisite care of yourself and take care of someone else too. Let yourself rest. Let yourself speak. Let yourself change. Let yourself matter. And remember, until next time, stay soft, stay curious, and stay open to the quiet, strange beauty of becoming human. Stupid, brilliant, messy, kind, chaotic, beautiful, exhausted, unfinished, and absolutely worth loving exactly as you are. Thank you.